Hello, everybody, and welcome to Strange or Ancient Mysteries. Today, I am starting the official live stream for the wonderful world of weirdness and strange stories, so that I can do these live stream via the internet, and just like I have done yesterday with. My previous stream, I do have Skype available and open. Mark is here. He just showed up. Hello, Mark.
Hi,
Hello.
I just got your YouTube notification and I was just reviewing your recording. Gonna have to do something with that for them.
Yeah, I ended up switching it, turning it down. That's what I noticed in the testing part and everything. So I was able to get,
Okay,
I was able to get the introduction going. So we are in the middle of the show. So that you
oh,
know, so you're on live stream. But yeah, I went through and adjusted that. I should probably turn it up a little bit more, but it was a little bit too loud. If that's what
yeah, YouTube. What's the lag between YouTube and live?
the lag.
Yeah, the time, the
Oh, you're talking about the time difference between it.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
it's maybe about 2 seconds. It's not supposed to have any, but it does have it. So
Well, in that case, yeah, you're gonna have to increase your volume even further.
hold on, I got a crazy cat meowing at the door. Got freaking snow or ice falling down, and it's raining on top of it, and this stupid cat wants to go in and out like it's some kind of freaking festival or something, you know? Can't believe it. So,
Yeah.
so got freaking. Okay, so let me hit pause real quick before he drives me nuts, and or not pause, but mute, and I'll be right back. I'm gonna let him out the door.
Mm.
Alright.
That is. Well, actually, it's no longer than 2 seconds. It's like, oh,
Yeah, it seems like he knows exactly when I'm doing this stuff too. He'll be right at the back door when it gets started. So.
no longer than 2 seconds. It's like, oh,
All right, so I am back. You
okay, that's better. Yeah.
okay? So let me go ahead and get this started. Make sure that audio on that video isn't up loud because it'll cause a loop.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. I paused. Yeah. I was getting confused. You were talking and I was listening to you on YouTube as well.
All right.
So true.
So today, what I want to do is I want to get back into some of this ancient history, and I'm wanting to go back over some stuff that I had done previous to the time that I went over the Amorites with Tan. The last time I did this with Karma. And the reason why I want to do that is because there were some things that I wanted to focus on, but I decided not to because we ended up getting to some deities that we were discussing called Mod, and that led us into a lot of Canaanite stuff that I decided would probably be a good idea to cover. But if anybody kept up with that series, that ended up being a disaster with me me and Karma. So that in the long term didn't turn out all that well. And I don't really suggest that anybody do a live stream concerning the Canaanite religion. That's just not a good idea. Just for future reference, if anybody's curious about doing that. The reason why I did it was because I used to watch a guy who does history clips that aren't really that long. They're maybe about 10 or 15 minutes, and he's called History with Cy, and he got into it, and he did a pretty good job of it. So I was like, it's actually something that I wanted to get into because, first of all, there's a lot of controversy about it, even today, among a lot of people, even the scholars and stuff. And I was like, yeah, it'd be a good idea to kind of get into it, even though I really didn't like talking about the Canaanites and the Levant. It's kind of an issue that I really didn't want to deal with, which kind of encouraged me to do it. But I went ahead and did it. But my whole purpose of it is that wasn't really the direction that I wanted to go on that. I'm glad I did it in the long run after all of it, because I was able to kind of get out some of the stuff that I had issues with, and I was able to cover a lot of that during this last year or so. But I think that I want to go back over it again and kind of get into the more serious parts about this. How much information do you know about ancient history, Mark? Mark?
So you're talking about when I was a kid, I took a lot of interest in Greek, Roman, and Egyptian.
Okay, so you'd have some, at least some general knowledge in the Greek. Everybody likes to call it mythology. I don't really like calling it mythology, but you would know some stuff about that then, right?
Again, mainly sort of mythological sort of things rather than actual history. But
Now,
yeah.
what I want to do too is I want to introduce some of the ancient Greek philosophy as well. And to start that off, I want to go over what they call the first principle. Do you have any idea of what that's about?
It rings a bell, but you'll have to remind me.
Okay, I can read it out to you then. Now, in ancient Greek philosophy, a first principle from which other principles are derived is called an arc, and later, first principle or element. By extension, it may mean first place, method of government, empire, realm, authorities. The concept of an arc was adapted from the earliest cosmogonies of Hesiod and Orphism through the physical theories of pre-Socratic philosophy and Plato before being formalized as a part of metaphysics by Aristotle. Arc, sometimes also transcribed as arche, is an ancient Greek word that with primary senses, beginning or origin or the source of action, from the beginning or the original argument, command. The first principle or element corresponds to the ultimate underlying substance, an ultimate undemonstrable principle. That's a hard word right there. But the heritage of Greek mythology already embodied the desire to articulate reality as a whole, and this universalizing impulse was fundamental to the first projects of speculative theorizing. It appears that the order of being was first imaginatively visualized before it was abstractly thought. So what they're saying there is it was visualized by the imagination first before it became a thought. And you kind of get that with Zoroastrianism as well. And here in a little bit, I'm also going to want to go over a couple of other things before we get into like the later parts of history, because I'm wanting to cover with everybody what pre-Greek substrates are, and then I want to also go over Proto-Indo-European languages and stuff like that too, because I believe that that's important. Because like when people talk about the Near East, they really get confused about a lot of things, much less the Greeks. You know what I mean? And I find that a lot of people also get confused when it comes to areas like the Russian steppe and the Black Sea and the Caspian Sea. You know what I mean? And there's a reason for that. Is because a lot of this stuff is intermingled, and it's hard for people in today's world to understand that it's all connected. You know, that there were root words that go back to the fundamentals of language. And when I say language, I'm not talking about what's written down. I'm talking about what's spoken. You know what I mean? The actual words. Like water in Turkey is the same as what water in English is, and that's because they have they come from an original source. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Much like a lot of European languages are based on Latin, and there is a crossover between,
That's
let's say, English and Spanish, or English and German, and
right.
so forth and so on.
And a lot of that's intermingled with Indo-European languages, and a lot of people don't understand that originally came from right around the Black Sea and the Caspian Sea. You know what I mean? Right up in that region, and it spread out, and that's a lot of migration patterns start in the east and they travel west, but the Indo-European civil or cultures, they went the opposite way. They went from the west to the east and then back to the west. You know what I mean?
So from Greece to Latin to further east.
The weird part about Greece, which is different from the rest of the Indo-Aryan migration patterns, is they actually had a direct source. Like it split off. The people that went east and then came back. But then there was a culture that actually moved down from the Caspian Sea and the Black Sea up around Germany and then down under into Turkey, and then they went right down over the Alps into Italy in that area, and then into Spain and all of that. So you have that group that was there, and then they were also Indo-European, but they were from a different group of Indo-Aryans, you know what I mean? Which, when I say Indo-European and I say Indo-Aryan, it's the same thing. It's just they changed names. So don't get that confused. They're not two separate. They're not two separate things. They're actually the same thing. It's just the names were changed.
Aryan as in Asian, as in what is it? It's India.
Yeah, all of it, all the way to China, and
not as an Aryan as in the common sort of modern viewpoint of Norse.
That's usually the common mistake that people make, but it's a whole
the
lot
sort
more.
of Germans with the Third Reich sort of theory.
Yeah, they believe all that. Don't get me wrong. There are groups that do believe all that, but that's a common mistake that a lot of people fell for all through history. Like, Hinduism. Hinduism was created out of the Indo-Aryan ideologies. So was Zoroastrianism, which Zoroastrianism and Hinduism are like brothers and sisters when it comes to religions.
Actually, Aryanism is more of a Persian concept, isn't it?
Yes,
I said Indian, but in reality, it's Persian.
that is to an extent too as well. But the Persians aren't as old, okay? And like the Persians had an issue with like Scythians, the Scythians and their beliefs, and they were Indo-Aryan as well. So um, even though the Persians are Indo-Aryan, then they're not necessarily the root, the beginning of it all. Like because the Scythians and the Sarmatians are real real deep into the Indo-Aryan kind of cultures. You know what I'm saying? And then when you get up around the northern part of the Caspian and the Black Seas and stuff, that then you have the Russians, and then you have and all the other countries up there, and then Germans. All of those are where it really all began, right up in that area. You know, just north of.
When you say Germans, you're talking about Hanson Goths
Yep.
rather than Germans.
Well,
Yeah.
if you're talking historically.
Because you're using a modern interpretation.
Yeah, I was just trying to be nice.
By calling them Germans. Yeah.
I was just trying to be nice to you, Mark. We can call them the Goths if you want. I mean, we can do that. We can call them that.
Hanson Goths or Hansel Goths? Yeah.
Okay, so in the mythological cosmogonies of the Near East, the universe is formless and it's empty, and the only existing thing prior to creation was the water abyss. Now, in the Babylonian creation story, the Elish, the primordial waters, is described as a watery chaos from which everything else appeared. Now, the watery chaos has similarities to the cosmogony of the Greek mythographer Pherecydes of Syros, and in the mythical Greek cosmogony of Hesiod, which is between the 8th to the 7th century BC. The origin of the word is chaos. The origin of the world is chaos, and you'll hear a lot of people discuss that. And like even today, when you hear people talking on the internet too, they'll talk about how chaos is actually the evil, and it's everything that we're supposed to be against, and it's all about bringing things into order and things of that nature. But nobody realizes that chaos is actually the mythological.
Who coined the quote? Out of chaos comes order.
That's probably I can't remember who, but that's probably the best quote you could do in a situation like this. That actually fits what I'm talking about, though. But the origin of the world is chaos, and it's considered as a divine primordial condition from which everything else appeared. In the creation, chaos is a gaping void, but later the word is used to describe the space between the earth and the sky after their separation. Chaos may mean infinite space or a formless matter which can be differentiated. The notion of temporal infinity was familiar to the Greeks' mind from remote antiquity in the religious conception of immortality. The conception of the divine as the origin influenced the first Greek philosophers. In the Orphic cosmogony, the unaging Chronos produced ether in chaos, and made in divine ether a silver egg from which everything else appeared. And when I go through this, or when I was going through this the first time, and like just here recently when I had to go back over this and kind of catch up at where I left off, it kept popping into my head about this egg and this silvery egg. And this happens a lot when it comes into a lot of this ancient history. Like, do you remember the story about the city of Troy? The battle in the Iliads?
Yeah. Just got to remind myself I'm not fully awake at the moment.
Now, in the Battle of Troy, do you remember uh, how the, the 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 whole thing started in the first place?
Not off the top of my head.
It was a conflict. It was in mythology, and it was supposed to have taken place between the 12th and 13th century BC. Now, the uh, the Greeks waged war against Troy um, after after they had taken Helen from her husband. Okay, now
Mhm,
Helen
mhm.
Helen's story is what's so interesting, okay, because if you read up on her, she was supposed to have been born of an egg, okay? And this theme pops out all through these myths, okay? And there's a reason for that is because, and I'll get to that before long, but I wanted to point that out before I went any farther about this because of this whole thing about the silvery egg from which everything else appeared. there's certain there's certain people within these ancient mythologies or histories or religions or whatever you want to call it, where they were born of an egg, and I think that's something that really stuck out to me when I got into it. So after going through all that, I want to kind of go over chaos and kind of discuss that a little bit more. Now, this is all according to chaos, and it's actually cosmogony, and I've used that term a couple of times. But that's basically what chaos is cosmogony. Now, chaos is the mythological
Do you mean, sorry, don't you mean cosmology?
cosmogony.
Okay,
Mogony. You're using
okay.
sophisticated, uppity up today words. We're using
Um,
we're using old folk word back from in the old ancient Greek days when they used to be all good and cool and stuff. Cosmogony.
for the
You're checking the word.
cosmol. Okay, yeah, okay, yeah. I just had to check that word.
And what does it mean?
Study of the origins and development of the universe,
Mm-hmm.
or a specific system within the universe.
Okay. So now, chaos is the mythical void state preceding the creation of the universe, the cosmos. Now, in ancient Near East uh, cosmology, the early Greek cosmology, no, and early Greek cosmology, it can also refer to the early state of the cosmos constituting of nothing but indifferentiated and indistinguishable matter. Now, there's something else that I wanted to point out here too with chaos, and there's a thing that they call chaos comp. All right. Now this is from Germany, and chaos comp, also described as a combat myth, is generally used to refer to a widespread mythological motif involving the battle between culture hero deity with a chaos monster, often in the form of a sea serpent or dragon. Now, the term was first used with respect to the destruction of the chaos dragon Tiamat in the Enuma Elish. Now, I don't know if I've had that conversation with you about the Enuma Elish or not, but that has to do with the Sumerians and the Babylonians, okay? And it's one of the first creation myths of the time. And Tiamat was the mother of Enki and Enlil. So, and I know you've heard me talking about Enki and Enlil all the time. I don't know if you
Yeah,
remember.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I just always considered the entire dragon creation thing to be Northern European rather than. I was just thinking about the Bethesda game Skyrim, to be fair,
Yeah.
which uses a lot of this concept in it.
Now, with Tiamat and all them, this comes straight out of the Sumerians. With this, it comes straight from the Sumerians, and then later into the Babylonian and the Assyrians. So, like the dragon, that's the weird thing about all of these dragon myths. I mean, they stem from everywhere, and it's just like with the unicorn. A lot of people don't realize that the unicorns, I mean, unicorns were on the walls of Babylon. They were painted onto the walls of Babylon. You realize that? It's amazing, man. I mean, and we fall into this thing where we think that like a lot of these myths and these beliefs were localized when in reality they were everywhere when it came to those regions and stuff. So okay, so the term was first used with respect to the destruction of the chaos dragon Tiamat in the Enuma Elish, although it has been observed that the primeval state is one of a peaceful existence between Abzu and Tiamat, and the chaos only ensued when Tiamat enters combat with Marduk. Now, Marduk was the head deity in the pantheon for Babylon. He was the one who eventually became the big guy. You know what I mean? Before him, there was On, Enlil, and Enki, but then Marduk came along and he took over.
This seems very similar to the Zeus and Titans concept.
Mm-hmm. It's
Yeah.
very much like that, and you'll see that being spread all over in it. Now today, the chaos concept is plagued by a lack of consistent definition and use of the term across many studies. Now, Nicholas Wyatt defines the chaos category as follows. The chaos myth is a category of divine combat narratives with cosmogonic overtones, though at times turned secondarily to other purposes in which the hero god vanquishes a power or powers opposed to him, which generally dwell in or are identified with the sea and are presented as chaotic, desolatory forces. Are presented as chaotic, desolatory forces. Now, it may also be used to refer to a dualistic battle between two gods. In that context, an alternative term that has been proposed is theomachi, whereas chaos comp may be restrained to refer to cosmic battles in the context of creation. For example, a chaos comp may be found in the Enuma Elish, the only ancient Near East text to place a cosmic battle in the context of a creation narrative, but not in the Baal cycle or Psalm 74, where a theomachi ensues between Baal Yahweh and the sea serpent Yam Leviathan, without being followed by creation. The notion of chaos comp may be further distinguished by a divine battle between a god and the enemy of his people. Parallel concepts appear in the Middle East and Northern Africa, such as the abstract conflict of ideas in the Egyptian duality of Ma'at and Ishfet, or the battle of Horus and Set, or the more concrete parallel of the battle of Ra with the chaos serpent Apophis, or Apophis. Apophis is one that always Apophis, the snake, basically. Now, the one thing that I know too, and this brings up a lot of it, is you'll see a lot of reference to serpents, and later on as I go through this, I'm also going to get into something that I've been. It's odd that it's happening at this time, but like all of the streams that I've been putting out here in the last week or so has been about mountain worshiping, pretty much. Like the one that it was weird because me and you were doing WWOW Talk the other day, and we were talking about Dead Mountain. I turned around and I did Strange Stories yesterday, and I did Mount Fuji, and it dawned on me last night that all of a sudden I'm doing a lot of material that's dealing with mountain worshiping, and I went and I started reviewing this stuff that I'd done before, and it just dawned on me here too that this has a lot to do with mountain worshiping too as well. A little while back I'd been doing Into the Abyss, and we were talking about geomancy, so this is kind of turning into something that's interesting to me, you know what I mean? So I just wanted to bring that up because I know it just seems odd that that's happening right now at this moment, to be honest with you. I really, it actually did kind of dawn on me that was going on. So now, before I go on, I did make a note of some of the stuff that I wanted to bring up, and it was the connections in Greek and Phoenician cosmologies. The role of mud or mot in creation. Now they talk. This is where everything went in a different direction with me and Carmen. I wanted to kind of put it back on track here. You know what I mean? And this is concerning the word mot in context. Now, in this whole creation myth right here, when it comes to the chaos and it comes to the first principle, they mention mot, and in this in these terms, the role of mot is actually like mot as mud, okay? And just as the Greek myth speaks of primordial chaos, the Phoenicians' cosmogony, which was made by, I keep forgetting how to say his name, Sanachinathion. He's an ancient author.
Sounds right.
He describes mot as arising from the interactions of wind and primordial waters. Now, mot represents both the mud and the first principle of life, embodying decay and potential creation. So, through the mix of wind and water and the primordial waters, mud is created, and that is mot, according to the Phoenicians. cosmologies. So I wanted to point that out. So we're not talking about the deity Mot of the underworld that the Canaanites worship. We're talking about the mud. And I wanted to set that straight and kind of go from that point on, you know what I mean? Now, I also wanted to bring up the philosophical interpretations. Now, this is all about Mot, pretty much, and when it comes to chaos and everything. Now, in Empedocles philosophy, you know, Empedocles, that's his name. In his philosophies, creation involves the interplay of the four elements, that's earth, air, fire, and water, and love and strife. Now, the watery compound could be an allegory for the mixing of the elements, leading to life. Now, in Heraclitus, I'm having a hard time with all these Greek words. Now, in Heraclitus's doctrine, flux and transformation, symbolized by water, are central to existence, resonating with the cyclical nature of putrescence and rebirth. So, you know, all that smelly, stinky stuff that you smell when, you know, all this putrid water mixes in with the mud and it just stinks real bad. That's what they're talking about.
Yeah.
So,
Stagnation.
yeah.
Yeah.
So with the cyclical nature of putrescence and rebirth, that's one thing. And a lot of the philosophers back then also talked about reincarnation as well, and they use this as an example for it too. So you'll find that a lot in the mythology and stuff. So, does it sound like I'm doing good so far, Mark?
Except for maybe a few pronunciations of Greek names, but yeah, sounds okay.
What's your take on it so far?
I'll let you continue, actually. Let you continue for a few views, but yeah, let you continue.
So, have you ever heard of Erebus? Or Erebus? Erebos?
It does ring a bell, but again, it's been a long time since I studied anything of that sort of.
Now, see, this is the direction that I originally wanted to take, because Erebus in Greek mythology is the personification of darkness. Now, in Hesiod's theogony, he's the offspring of chaos, which is what we just discussed, and he's the father of Ether and Hemera, that's day, and then Nyx, which is night. Now, in other Greek cosmogonies, he is the father of Ether, Eros, and Metis, or the first ruler of the gods. Now, in genealogies given by Roman authors, he begets a large progeny of personifications upon Nox, the Roman equivalents of Nyx, which is night. While in an Orphic theogony, he is the offspring of Kronos. So he would be one of the sons of Kronos, which is the god of time. And Kronos was also the father of not Zeus, I don't think. Yeah, he was the father of Zeus, Kronos, and then Uranus was Kronos' father, I believe.
Let's see, isn't Uranus a European term? Uranus is a later term, isn't it?
He's the Greek father of Kronos.
Okay, I'm just thinking of the actual name Uranus is a later term. Some more.
So we're gonna be sitting here talking about Uranus all night. I mean, seriously, dude. Are
Okay.
we going there?
Uh, I leave that to Jeff. He was on that
I
day.
had to do it, you know. I had to do it, you know.
Yeah.
I had to do it. Now, the name Erebus is also used to refer to either the darkness of the underworld itself, or the region through which souls pass to reach Hades, and can sometimes be used as a synonym for Tartarus or Hades. Now, the etymology, the meaning of the word Erebus is darkness or gloom, referring to that of the underworld. It derives from the Proto-Indo-European Hyregos, which is darkness, and is cognate with the Sanskrit Rajas, dark lower air dust. The Armenian Eric, evening, in the Gothic Rikus, and the Old Norse Rikor, which is dark dust. So, just so if anybody needs to know about the um, etymology of this name, that's where it all comes from. And like I said, I do want to get into Indo-European and what was it? I want to get into the pre-Greek substrates, which is before the Greek language. And well, before I get into all that, I'll just do the rest of this. That I don't even know for sure if I'll be able to get into that by the end of the night, but I did want to cover Nyx. Now, Nyx is the one that I want to cover next. Now, in Greek mythology, Nyx is the goddess and personification of the night. In Hesiod's Theogony, she is the offspring of chaos and the mother of Ether and Hemerod, which is day, by Erebus, darkness. By herself, she produces a brood of children, which are mainly personifications of primary negative forces. She, feature, she features in a number of early cosmogonies, which place her as one of the first deities to exist. In the works of poets and playwrights, she lives at the edge of the earth and is often described as a black-robed goddess who drives through the sky in a chariot pulled by horses. In the Iliad, Homer relates that even Zeus fears to displease her. Night is a prominent figure in several theogonies of Orphic literature, in which she is often described as the mother of Uranus and Gaia. In the earliest Orphic cosmogonies, she is the first deity to exist, while in the later Orphic rhapsodies, she is the daughter and consort of Phanes, and the second ruler of the gods. She delivers prophecies to Zeus from the Adyton and is described as the nurse of the gods. In the rhapsodies, there may have been three separate figures named Night. In ancient Greek art, Nyx often appears alongside other celestial deities such as Selene, Helios, and Eos, as a winged figure driving a horse-pulled chariot. Though of little cultic importance, she was also associated with several oracles. The Romans referenced her as Nox, whose name also means night. Now, I am going to be getting into Eos too, which I really think is important to do. This is where we start getting into the primal stuff. This was the stuff that I wanted to go down, or the avenue I did want to go down last year, but I ended up getting distracted by it. And I don't have any problems with actually doing that, you know what I'm saying? But I did want to go this direction because um, things you get to a point when you start doing this stuff where there's just so much that you can actually do research on when it comes to time. You know what I mean? Because like history, what we consider history only goes back to like 15,000 BC. And if you want to go farther than that, you have to go into prehistory, which I can get into, you know, but it's not really as cool as what history is, to be honest, you know, in my opinion. So what happened was is I started getting into linguistics and figuring out the migration patterns of some of these cultures that was around before civilizations and things of that nature. And that's really where I feel people should be going after they hit a certain point in doing this kind of research. You know what I mean, Mark?
Mm.
Because there's just so much you can learn. You know what I mean when it comes to this stuff. Like tablets freaking decay. You know what I mean? Like after a certain amount of time, they're not going to be able to find much more when it comes to tablets and archaeological finds because it's gonna be gone. You know, it decays after a certain
Depend on the environment. And
and technology.
yeah,
Technology too.
well, not necessarily technology, but the environmental sort of conditions that they are stored in.
Yeah. Well, think about it too. Okay, you've got a lot of these tablets that um, are in the ground, all right, and once they become exposed to the oxygen again, you have to make sure that they're not damaged. And some of them have had damage done to them, but at the same time, it's a blessing they were able to get what they could get. Like I've heard some pretty messed up stories about the beginnings whenever they first started getting serious about archaeology, and like now they're doing a lot better job, but they could still be doing better than what they've been doing. Even, you know, it's progress in motion. Is what I call it. So now, like I said, I did want to get into Eos, but before that, I wanted to go over the Astrius. Have you ever heard of that?
As an Austrian.
The Astrius is a astrological deity.
Okay.
Some also associate him with the winds, as he is the father of the four Antimoi, and they're all the wind deities. And his wife was Eos. Now, his name Astrius is ancient Greek, and it derives from the Greek word aster, which is star. Star itself is inherent from the Proto-Indo-European root Hester, and from Hehius. No, it's hard doing that because they always put the 2 in there, but it's H2 stir, which is usually Hester, and that means star. And then H2EH 1S, which is usually Hehis, and that means to burn. Now, Astria shares the same etymology as what these two words share right here. So, the mythology, according to Hesiod's Theogony and Bibliotheca, Astraeus is a second-generation Titan descendant from Creus in Eurybia. However, Hyginus wrote that he was descended directly from Tartarus in Gaia and referred to him as one of the Gigantus Servius, perhaps conflating him with the giant like Hyginus did. Wrote that he took arms and fought against the gods. Now, Astraeus married Eos, the goddess of the dawn. Together, as nightfall and daybreak, they produced many children associated with what occurs in the sky during twilight. So that's lovemaking, is what they're talking about. Let's see. Now in Hesiod's Theogony, Astraeus and Eos produces the winds, namely Zephyrus, Boreas, and Notus, as well as Usophorus and the stars. A few sources mention another daughter, Astraea, the goddess of innocence and occasionally justice. Now, he is also sometimes associated with Aeolus, the keeper of the winds, since winds often increase around dusk. Now, in Nonnus's epic poem Dionysiaca, Astraeus is presented as an oracular god whom the goddess Demeter visits, concerned about her daughter Persephone's future, as she had started to attract a significant number of admirers on Olympus. She had turned into a whore. Okay. And now, Persephone's is attracting all of these people, these admirers to Olympus. Okay, and her mother's worried that she might end up marrying Hephaestus. And Astraeus then warned her that soon enough Persephone would be ravished by a serpent and bear fruit from that union, which greatly upset Demeter. Okay, now right here we have the reference to Persephone being ravished by a serpent, and she was going to have a baby. Okay, now this goes back to what I was talking about with Helen of Troy. She was born of an egg. Okay, so you kind of get that, because a reptile, you know what I'm saying? What is a reptile born out of? You know what I mean?
And they go outside of well, generally speaking, outside of the body, whereas humans are, gestation is done within the body.
And this makes the second reference like that. This is something that stuck out to me. And it says Persephone would be ravished by a serpent and bear fruit from that union. So I found that pretty interesting. And it's like I said, you'll find these little gold nuggets all through these mythologies. And it's always been there. It's just nobody's ever really paid attention enough to really catch on to it. You know what I mean? But with that being said, I also wanted to bring up the wind gods in ancient Greek mythology, and that starts with Eos, which is what I wanted to get to. Now this is the ancient Greek mythology and religion. Eos, which is basically, it means dawn. If anybody's ever or curious about it. Now Eos is the goddess of personification of the dawn. who rose each morning from her home at the edge of the river Oceanus to deliver light and disperse the night. Now, in Greek tradition and poetry, she is characterized as a goddess with a great sexual appetite who took numerous human lovers for her own satisfaction and bore them several children. Like her Roman counterpart, Aurora, and Rigvedic Ushas, Eos continues the name of an earlier Indo-European dawn goddess, which is Hasos. Eos, in her earlier Proto-Indo-European, which is PIE if it, in initials, if you ever see people with the initials PIE in it, that's what they're saying, the Proto-Indo-European. But in her earlier Proto-Indo-European ancestor, Osho shares several elements with the love goddess Aphrodite, perhaps signifying Eos's influence on her, or otherwise a common origin of the two goddesses. Now, in surviving traditions, Aphrodite is the culprit behind Eos's numerous love affairs, having cursed the goddess with the insatiable lust for mortal men. So we had like a nymphomaniac goddess running around ravaging us poor human mortal men. Isn't that
I
horrible?
like how Wikipedia puts us. I forgot she like Eos. He's a predator and not prey, as no tales of men assaulting her exist. But there are many tales where he multiple men's
No, hold on a minute, you're breaking up. What was you saying there? Repeat that.
Okay.
There were
Yeah. Sorry. She's a predator and not prey. So both concepts, the Eos and can never say no. So yeah, there are no tales of men assaulting her, but there are tales of where she's adopted mortal men.
Yeah. Now you also need to think too. The Greek. It might not be Wikipedia. This could be those dastardly Greek men who wrote the stories. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Because they were they weren't very like today. Everybody's all being real sensitive when it comes to women, but they weren't like that back in the days with the ancient Greeks. You know what I mean? It was like that's one of the things I try to remind people whenever we're doing this, is because you got to put yourself in the time period. You know what I mean? Kind of get out of this world we're in today and how we think, because you're going to have to put your mindset into that time period and realize what kind of people you're dealing with when you hear these stories. You know what I'm saying? And it's really hard for people to do that, is basically the whole thing. You know what I mean? And you got to realize that it's a story that's written by men. You know what I mean? Like Greek men from ancient days who had very little respect for women. Period. You know, I went over this with Karma last year about like the Assyrians and their treatment of women was horrible. You know, and the whole list could go on some of the stuff that I've actually read in here, but just keep that in mind is all I'm saying. Like
Well, we're not saying that all cultures, ancient cultures, treated women badly.
I just can't find too many that treated them good.
Right.
To be honest with you, I just haven't, and I'm not trying to be like liberal or anything like that, dude. I'm just being honest. You know what I mean? It's like they're just horrible. And it's not just women. Don't let me say that by itself. I mean, like they treat each other horrible. Period. You know. And like if you want to say something like that concerning women, like I've actually done research on on how they treated their children, and like their children, they just, I mean, I don't get where people today say friggin' we came from like this golden age, you know what I mean? Because we didn't. Human.
Again, not all cultures are the same.
Name one. Name one.
Right?
Name one culture that was really good to their children and their women.
I would have to do the research.
It would take you a long time because I'm still trying.
Okay, I'll do some serious research on that one. But
I've yet to find any culture.
you are the historian. You are the.
I'm just telling you, I've done the research, man. I have not yet found anyone, and it's sad because I'd like to know of at least one of them where women were and children were treated good, you know, but that didn't happen.
If you believe Plato, Amazon.
No, you can't believe a word Plato ever said.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you believe Plato, yeah, the Amazonian tribes.
Especially, like, okay, this is kind of where a lot of this is going to go down, just so you know. Like, we're going to be discussing this.
Yeah, I guess that's much.
Now, when I was mentioning the Scythians and the Sarmatians earlier, the Scythians are what you would refer to as the Amazonians. And the Scythians weren't just women, they were both men and women. Alright, but the Greeks had an issue with them, well, I guess you could say, okay, I take it back, they might have actually treated their women right.
Actually, I've heard this argument before, but it's also been suggested that Plato just invented Amazon.
Well, see, the Greeks despised the Scythians because they allowed their women to participate in battle. And the Scythian women, dude, they were so much into it that they would cut off their freaking boobs so that they could hold their bow right and fight. You know what I mean? I mean, it was. They were vicious. They were like every man's dream. You know what I mean? Hopefully they were good looking. You know what I mean? Because like some of the stuff I've read on there, these women were some bulldogs, man. You know, I mean they were tough. The Scythians actually split off from the Sarmatians because the Amazon women apparently couldn't get along with Sarmatian women, so they told their husbands that they needed to leave. So they broke off and they created the Scythian tribes. So you had the Sarmatians on one side, and then you had the Scythians on the other side. Between the
where did he use the term husbands? Because in the Amazon ferry, there was no such thing as husbands, or
that's what they were.
Yeah.
That was the original. That's the real story. It's not the Greek story. See.
Yeah.
No, the whole thing that the Greeks said, they were talking about how horrible the Amazons were, and that they were like this horrible breed of women warriors who hated men and all that, and that was farthest from the truth, you know. And when they were making references like that, they were taking pot shots at the Scythians.
Mm.
So that's where a lot of that came from.
That makes sense, yeah.
Now, a lot of people who are really into history right now is probably coming up with real intellectual words to call me that would relate to other words like you stupid bastard and shit like that. You know, like you could have said
that. Yeah, that's what made no so intellectual.
You know, full of conjecture. That's what they're thinking. You know, but that's my take on it, and don't take that down as like historical fact. That's just Rogers rambling bullshit. You know, I get really, I really do get into this stuff. You know what I mean? So, um, I think what we need to do here, I thought that we would be able to get a little bit farther, but I want to hold off on this after I'm done with doing EOS. We'll come back and then we'll get into the Inamoi, and that's where we get into the gods of wind, I believe. Yeah, the cardinal directions, and the winds of the north, east, south, and west. You know, we'll get into the good stuff because this is the direction, like I said, that I wanted to go with this. Um, and I didn't really want to get into the Canaanite stuff because that gets more down into the religions. But I'm glad I did that because I was able to cover the Amorites with Tan. You know what I mean?
Okay.
And there's still some more stuff I want to cover with that because I'm kind of confused between like the Jewish stories concerning the Amorites is that they defeated the Amorites and they were vanquished and all this, but in other literatures it says that the Amorites were the ones who built Babylon. You know, so
yeah.
So I want to get a little bit more into that and see where that goes too. So now let me go ahead and finish this reading, and then I will end it and everything. So now in Greek literature, Eos is presented as a daughter of the Titans Hyperion and Thea, the sister of the sun god Helios and the moon goddess Selene. In rare traditions, she is the daughter of the Titan Pallas. Each day she drives her two-horse chariot, heralding the breaking of the new day and her brother's arrival. Thus, her most common epithet of the goddess in the Homeric epics is Rhododactylus, or rosy-fingered, a reference to the sky's colors at dawn, and Erigenia, early born, although primarily associated with the dawn and early morning. Sometimes Aias would accompany Helios for the entire duration of his journey, and thus she is ever seen during dusk. Which, that's pretty cool, actually. That is kind of cool if you stop and think about it, because she's supposed to be the early morning when the sun comes up, the sunrise. You know what I mean? But could you imagine accompanying the sun all day long, the sunrise, where just it would feel like an entire morning, the whole day, when you first woke up? That would be.
I don't know. Very rarely see the morning these days.
Well, like, think about it like this. When you were a child, do you remember those mornings where you woke up and it just looked beautiful out? When it was just like in the spring or something, and you went out and sat on your porch, and it was that beautiful morning, you know what I mean? That's kind of what sticks out to me.
Okay.
So that's kind of cool. When I was reading that, that's what I was thinking of at the time. So now, Aias fell in love with mortal men several times and would abduct them in similar manner to how male gods did mortal women. Her most notable mortal lover is the Trojan prince Tithonus, for whom she ensured the gift of immortality, but not eternal youth, leading to him aging without dying for an eternity. In another story, she carried off an Athenian Cephalus against his will, but eventually let him go, for he ardently wished to be returned to his wife, though not before she b- b- denigrated her, not before she denigrated her to him, leading to the couple parting ways. Now, what the heck does that mean? Denigrated her to him, though not before she denigrated.
Then,
You're good with
then,
words.
then, denigrated through
Yeah, before she.
Judge, drove.
Oh,
She drove.
she had her way with him.
I think.
She,
I think.
she,
Yeah, in this context.
she, she must have had her way with him, leading to the couple parting ways. Several other lovers and romances with both mortal men and gods were attributed to the goddess by various poets throughout the centuries. Eos figures in many works are ancient literature and poetry, but despite her Proto-Indo-European origins, there is very little evidence of Eos having received any cult or being the center of worship during classical times, which I can understand. Like, I mean,
Actually, going back to that term denigrated, I'm thinking of the to, to disparage, to criticise unfairly.
not before she degraded. Oh, okay. So she basically talked shit on his wife
Yeah, in effect, yeah.
to him.
It just disparage.
Yeah, and that led to the couple parting ways.
That would make more sense, yeah.
Yeah, they're trying to get all fancy with their words and stuff. That's what the problem is with a lot of these people, man. You got to deal with all these smart people trying to come up with complicated words. And they need to stop that. It's bad enough that we have to read freaking Greek mythology and all these Greek words, like cephalus.
As you keep reminding me, you don't do big words.
Yeah, it's like, oh man, like Eos is EOS. You know what I mean? That's it. It's good, but what do you have? Why do you have to come up with all these crazy stuff like Tithonus? Come on, dude. Seriously. So that is all I'm going to read on that, and then I'll get to the Anemoi, and I think that's going to be good because those are wind gods, and we can get into like cardinal directions and stuff of that nature, and start talking about the good stuff that I wanted to get into before, and go that direction. And plus, I want to get deeper into things and start talking about the Indo-European languages, and things of that nature.
Okay.
So it's going to be a little bit more interesting, or hopefully it is. I don't know how you are, but I know you're into like terms of services and stuff like that. So this might actually be pretty exciting for you.
To speak. So yeah, this episode's just more of a sort of foundational episode.
Yeah. It's history, okay. This is more about like a lot of things that are misunderstood about the mysteries that went on back then and what people believed. Like I was talking earlier about like mountain worshippers, and here before long, once I get through this part and we start talking about the cardinal directions and the cardinal winds, you'll start hearing about these gods and these deities that were worshipped, okay? And a lot of them were affiliated with mountains, and this was a form of mountain worshiping that took place, and you'll start seeing connections with that, and even how the Jewish used a form of mountain worshiping too, like when Moses went up on the mountain to
Mm.
receive the 12 commandments. Okay, that's real powerful mountain worship right there. And a lot of people aren't even aware of it, you know. So it's really an interesting way of looking at it. Um, but yeah, that's basically the gist of it.
Yeah, as I pointed out the other day on our other one, other stream, um, it's all about in the environments that you recognize. If you are born in a desert, then you're going to create mythology around deserts. If you born in mountainous areas, then you're going to create mythology around the concept of mountains.
You know what happens if you live in the desert and you see mountains in the distance? Because that happened quite a bit to me when I was living in Arizona. You know?
Well, yeah. Like I said, you're just going to create mythology, ideas, concepts around the areas that you see.
Now, if you really want to hear something cool about the United States, I brought up Arizona. Okay, check into
Mm.
probably the least publicized mountain that should get more recognitions in Arizona. It's called the Superstition Mountain, and the history behind that.
Okay.
You will love that story, dude. Um, that's something that I wanted to kind of point out there after I said that, because I never even thought about that. But that was the way they were over there, like around Phoenix and Arizona and stuff, or Mesa and everything. You lived in the city, but you had the Superstition Mountains sitting up there, and it just, you were compelled to learn more about it. You know what I mean? So I started checking out the history on it, and there were people who worshipped the Superstition Mountains in Arizona. So that led me down that whole path. That was
Pre European. Oh,
pre civilization. You know.
well, pre-European. I won't say civilization.
You know
We
what?
created civilization.
Hey man, somebody has to say it.
Yeah.
Well, anyhow, I appreciate you for being here, and we have actually done pretty good. We made it to an hour and 20 minutes in the stream, and we've got a hour and 17 minutes of record time. So we did good. I was really happy that this started out as well as it did for the first episode of Ancient Mysteries. And it's like I said before you got in here. I kept this as strangeness on the on strange stories on YouTube, but it is. Oh my goodness, was somebody in here all the time?
I just got.
Yeah.
She just got in here.
Yeah, right when you started talking about Arizona.
Yeah, you were listening in again, weren't you?
Yeah, just now. And that's pretty cool. It's like you picked up on that psychically or something.
Mm-hmm. It's I was telling him about the Superstition Mountains and everything, and how the Indians used to worship that mountain. And it's probably the least most recognized story when it comes to the Indians. But it really should be spoken of more. So.
Yeah, there's a lot of UFO activity over there as well.
Well, I used to live by it. Did you know that?
Yeah. And when I first moved here, I lived right next to it too. That's where I seen my first UFO, was right when I lived right there.
Yeah.
Not that I probably would have seen it wherever I was at, but that happened to be where I seen it at. And there's a lot of activity over there, actually.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, the what's now, it would be the well, I guess you'd say the eastern side of Gilbert, in Gilbert, Arizona, right there.
Mm-hmm.
At one time it was called Higley, and I was living on Higley Road
Yep.
right before you got to Queen Creek,
Okay.
and there was a dairy that was there, and I used to live on that dairy with my dad. He was a milker, and I actually was going to the barn to get milk, and that was the first time I possibly saw a UFO. I'm not sure if it was a UFO, but
Wow.
I was about 12 years old.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That's 3 wows in a row.
You know what that means, don't you?
I do, Roger.
And that means good stuff. We were
It does.
just talking about a Greek goddess. Her name was Aes, or Eos.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard about her?
It doesn't sound too familiar. No.
Okay, so I'll leave it at that because I don't want to get you too hyper. She was pretty hardcore.
Yeah.
She was you know how men are some men are womanizers.
Uh-huh.
She was
She's a man.
She was a manizer.
Manizer. Wow. Imagine that.
She would abduct men and make them do what she wanted them to do.
Abduct.
Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy.
Mhm.
Yeah, I haven't heard of her.
Yeah, she's something else. But
Apparently.
I'm going to be coming back next week, and we are going to start talking about the cardinal directions and the four, or I think it's 4 or 5. No, it's 4 winds. And,
Oh, sweet.
And I'm glad you're here. Actually, I know you'd be interested in that.
Yeah, that sounds really interesting. Definitely.
The cardinal winds.
I don't know much about the ancient histories and stuff like that. A little bit, not as much as you guys do, but I figured I'd pop in anyway. Just you guys sound like you're having so much fun.
Well, we
are.
It's just, you know, when it comes to ancient history, this is about as exciting as it gets. You know what I mean?
Right. Right.
This is
Right.
this is the party. This is where it's
Fantastic.
at.
Yeah. Couldn't resist. Had to pop in. So I'll add whatever I can to, you know,
Hey,
the
you're doing really good. And
sweet.
now, the other day you had what looked like your grandson there. Was that your grandson that was on the video?
Uh-huh. Yeah, I'm watching him right now. Actually,
that's what I was getting ready to ask, if you'd been still seeing him and stuff. It was cool to see your grandbaby there.
Yeah, he's a sweetie. I live with him and my daughter and her husband.
Cool.
Yeah, so I see him all the time.
All right. Now, Mark, and you need to tell everybody how they can get in touch with you if they want to reach out and talk to you. So,
Okay.
Let's just start.
Go for it, Mark.
Okay, nice and simple. Yeah, can easily find me on mine.com at /Medworthy.
Okay, yeah, that's what he goes by, Medworthy. So
Yeah.
Anywhere you hear Medworthy, that's who they're talking about.
Sweet. I like it.
Okay, how about you, Sonia?
Galacticfire.com, TEC, not TIC, and I have a contact thing on there, or I'm also on Instagram, and it's just Galactic Fire. If you put that into a search engine, I'm sure you'll find one of my social medias or whatever, you know.
And just let everybody know too, we constantly put her advertisement on our videos, so if you guys ever see the commercials going on there, that too is on right now, so that's how you can find out about her shop.
Yeah. Yeah,
now, before we get off here, man, you do know that Mark W. also invited you to come on to Vixen's Vault too, if you wanted to, right?
Yeah, I was thinking about that actually yesterday, and he caught me. I was on DK's live or whatever. We were talking, you know how that goes. So, and he happened to go into the chat room, and I missed him when he went in there. So I have yet to talk to him. So that's coming up. I'm going to be talking to him about that, definitely.
Okay. All right. So with that being said, I am going to end the show and I will talk to you guys later, man. Okay.
Okay. Bye.
Bye bye.